I never thought I'd be the type of woman who keeps a secret this big. I'm Stella, 34, and up until 2 weeks ago, I had what everyone called the perfect marriage. 7 years with Bradley, my high school sweetheart, and our adorable 3-year-old daughter Lily, who is basically his entire world. Or at least, he thought she was his. Nobody ever suspects the quiet ones, right? I wasn't some party girl or serial cheater. It was just that 1 month, 3.5 years ago, when Bradley and I hit a rough patch. He was working late constantly, barely talking to me, and I felt invisible. That's when I met Ethan at my gym. He was the new personal trainer, attentive, funny, and honestly, made me feel seen again. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious. When I found out I was pregnant, Ethan completely ghosted, blocked my number, switched gyms, vanished. Meanwhile, Bradley and I had reconnected, and the timing, well, it was close enough that I convinced myself it could be his. By the time I was sure it wasn't, I was already 5 months along, and Bradley was so excited to become a dad. What was I supposed to do? Destroy everything? These past 3 years have been complicated. Watching Bradley become this amazing father, hearing him call Lily Daddy's little princess, seeing them with their matching dimples when they smile, even though I know those dimples came from Ethan. Every milestone, her first steps, first words, starting preschool, I see Bradley's proud face and this knot in my stomach grows bigger. Lately, the guilt's been eating me alive. I've been overcompensating like crazy, baking his favorite peanut butter cookies twice a week, initiating bedroom time way more often, planning surprise date nights. Between us, I think he noticed something was off. Last week, he actually asked if I was having an affair now, which is just, God, the irony. My best friend Amy says I should take this secret to my grave. What good would telling him do now? She always asks. My mom agrees, says I'd be selfish to unload my guilt if it means destroying our family. But they don't see Bradley's face when he talks about how Lily has his eyes, or when he jokes about her athletic ability coming from his side of the family. Each lie has been stacking up, building this wall between us that only I can see. Last month, at Lily's 3rd birthday party, Bradley's mom kept going on about how Lily looks just like Bradley did at that age, and I nearly had a panic attack in the bathroom. I've started having these dreams where Bradley finds out from someone else. A medical emergency where blood types don't match, or one of those DNA kits people give as gifts. The dream always ends the same way, with him looking at me like I'm a monster. Yesterday, Bradley took the day off work so we could have a family day at the zoo. Lily was perched on his shoulders, pointing at the elephants, and he looked so perfectly happy. That's when this voice in my head just said, he deserves to know the truth. I've convinced myself that coming clean is the right thing, that honesty will somehow magically fix everything, that he'll understand why I kept this secret. Maybe he'll forgive me because he loves Lily so much already. What's 3 years of deception if we have decades ahead to rebuild trust? Tonight, after Lily goes to bed, I'm going to tell him everything. I've rehearsed it a dozen times in my head, planned exactly how to explain it all. He's reasonable, he's kind, he loves us both so much. That has to count for something. Right? I did it. I actually did it. After an amazing day out with Bradley and Lily, something in me just broke. We got home, put her to bed, and instead of our usual routine of Netflix and wine, I sat him down on the couch and just said it. I need to tell you something. She's not yours. His face, I'll never forget how it changed. It was like watching someone die right in front of you. First confusion, then disbelief, then this horrible realization spreading across his features. I started crying immediately. The words tumbling out about Ethan from the gym, how it was only for that 1 month when we were struggling. How Ethan vanished once I told him I was pregnant. I wanted to tell you so many times, I sobbed, reaching for his hand. But I was scared, and then you were so happy about the baby, and it just got harder and harder to say anything. Bradley just sat there, tears streaming down his face, looking at me like I was a complete stranger. Like he'd never seen me before. He didn't yell or scream. Almost wish he had. The silence was so much worse. She's still yours, I insisted, my voice breaking. Biology doesn't matter compared to the love you've given her. You're her dad, in every way that counts. When he finally moved, it was to push my hands away when I tried to comfort him. He stood up, walked to the closet, and grabbed his jacket. I followed him, clinging to his arm, begging him to forgive me, to stay and talk about it. Bradley, please. You can't just leave. Think about Lily. She'll wake up tomorrow expecting to see you. You're the only father she's ever known. He turned to look at me one last time before walking out the door. His eyes were so empty. 3 years, he whispered. 3 years of lies, every single day. And then he was gone. I called and texted him constantly that night. Nothing. By morning, I discovered he'd blocked my number completely. I kept thinking he just needed space, that he'd come back once the shock wore off. I mean, he couldn't possibly abandon Lily after 3 years of being her dad, right? I called my mom in a panic. She came right over and held me while I cried. He'll come around, she promised. No real man walks away from his child, blood or not. My sister Jen showed up an hour later with coffee and donuts, saying Bradley looked absolutely destroyed when she passed him walking into his office building. I made a mistake, I told them, but at least I owned up to it. He's overreacting by just walking out without even discussing it. Doesn't our family deserve more than that? The worst part was explaining to Lily why Daddy wasn't at breakfast. She kept asking for him all day, and I had no idea what to tell her. I settled on, Daddy had to go on a work trip, but I knew that excuse wouldn't last. By evening, my mom and sister were calling him on my behalf. When they couldn't reach him either, they tried his parents, who apparently knew everything already. They told my mom that Bradley was taking time to process a betrayal and asked her not to call again. Betrayal. Such a harsh word for what was really just one mistake and then a series of, well, protective choices. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was trying to keep our family together. Why couldn't anyone understand that? The divorce papers arrived exactly 5 days after my confession. Bradley moved out overnight and hired a lawyer immediately. The efficiency of his exit was like a slap in the face. He clearly had a plan, while I was still reeling, trying to figure out what to do next. My mom and sister continued to rally around me. Mom even called Bradley directly and told him he needed to step up and continue being a father to Lily, regardless of biology. Family isn't about blood, she lectured him. It's about who was there, changing diapers and kissing boo-boos. He hung up on her. My sister tried next, sending this long, emotional email about how Lily would be traumatized losing the only father she'd ever known. No response. She forwarded it to his parents too, who replied with a curt message saying Bradley would handle his responsibilities appropriately, but needed space from toxic influences. Toxic? Me? I was just being honest. Finally, after carrying this burden for years, my friend Amy and her husband Ryan were the only ones who didn't immediately jump to my defense. When I called Amy sobbing about the divorce papers, there was this awkward pause before she said, "Well, what did you expect, Stella? 3 years is a long time to deceive someone." I hung up on her. Some friend. Meanwhile, Lily kept asking where Daddy was. Each morning she'd toddle into our bedroom looking for him, and each time my heart broke all over again. The work trip excuse was wearing thin. She was starting to have tantrums, sensing something was wrong. I tried everything to reach Bradley. Mutual friends, showing up at his workplace, where security politely but firmly asked me to leave, even driving by his parents' house until I spotted his car. Nothing worked. It was like he'd built a complete wall between us overnight. When I finally got him on the phone, by borrowing my neighbor's cell so he wouldn't recognize the number, the conversation was brief and devastating. "Why?" I demanded, once I heard his voice. "Why would you just abandon her like this? She's innocent in all this. I'm not discussing this without my lawyer present," he said flatly. "Did you even need to take a DNA test? Or did you just believe me right away?" I asked, suddenly curious why he hadn't demanded proof. The silence on the other end made my stomach drop. "I already knew," he finally said, his voice hollow. "I got tested months ago when she needed that blood type screening for her surgery. The doctor mentioned something. I had suspicions before that, but that confirmed it." I felt like I'd been punched. "You knew? And you didn't say anything?" "I was trying to figure out how to confront you," he said. "I loved her anyway. I was making arrangements to still be in her life regardless. But then you came clean, and I realized 3 years, Stella. 3 years of looking me in the eye every day and lying. That's worse than what I did? I snapped. Sneaking around behind my back with DNA tests? Goodbye, Stella. The fact that he knew and still played the role of devoted father while planning his exit strategy felt like the ultimate betrayal to me. Somehow, I'd managed to convince myself that his silence was worse than my years of deception. My mother even threatened to disown him if he abandoned his daughter. She left this blistering voicemail. Biology doesn't make a family. Those years of love can't just be erased because you're hurt. Man up, Bradley. He filed a restraining order the next day, citing harassment from my family. The papers were delivered by a stone-faced sheriff's deputy while Lily was napping. I keep telling myself that his reaction is selfish, that walking away from a child who knows him as dad makes him the villain, not me. But late at night, when the house is quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts, I'm not so sure anymore. I finally cornered Bradley at our old favorite coffee shop after weeks of trying to reach him. I wasn't proud of how I did it, basically guilt-tripped his coworker into telling me where he'd be that morning. I came prepared with my emotional arsenal. Photo albums, videos of Lily asking for him, even her favorite stuffed bunny he gave her that she won't sleep without. I got there early and picked the corner table, our table, where we couldn't be easily overheard. When he walked in and saw me, he froze. For a second I thought he might turn around and leave, but instead, he squared his shoulders and approached. 10 minutes, he said, not sitting down. That's all. He looked different. Thinner, maybe, but also calmer than I expected. I'd imagined him a wreck without us, but he seemed composed. Put together. It made me angry, honestly. Lily cries for you every night, I started, pushing the photo album toward him. She doesn't understand why her daddy disappeared. I've contacted a family therapist to help with the transition, he replied, still standing. My lawyer has already outlined a visitation schedule for the court. Visitation? I laughed bitterly. You're her father, Bradley, not some weekend uncle. I'm not her father, Stella. You made that perfectly clear. I switched tactics, apologizing profusely, promising complete transparency, offering couples counseling, anything to rebuild what we had. I even reached across the table to touch his hand, which he smoothly moved away. I still love you, I whispered. We can get past this. His response chilled me. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. He finally sat down, looking at me with these empty eyes. I still love Lily, he explained carefully, like talking to a child. But I can't separate her from your betrayal. Seeing her reminds me of how easily and thoroughly you lied to me for years. Continuing as her primary father would mean staying connected to you for the next 15 years at least. I can't do that. So you're punishing an innocent child because you're mad at me? I snapped. I'm offering financial support and consistent visitation, he replied evenly. I've spoken with a child psychologist about the healthiest way to transition. I'm not abandoning her. Just downgrading her, I said. From daughter to what? Part-time project? Something flashed in his eyes then, the first real emotion I'd seen. You don't get to take the moral high ground here, Stella. Not after what you did. I switched tactics again, threatening to tell everyone about how he abandoned an innocent child who loved him. His response shocked me. They already know everything, he said quietly. I've explained the situation to our entire friend group, my family, and even told my boss why I needed personal time. They know about the paternity, and they know about how you manipulated the situation for years. That explained why several friends had stopped returning my calls. Even my college roommate Jackie, who I thought would always be on my side, had been mysteriously busy whenever I tried to make plans. Bradley then calmly listed all the times I could have told the truth but chose not to. Before we married, before deciding to keep the pregnancy, when filling out Lily's birth certificate, during her surgery when genetic history was critical. Each example felt like another nail in a coffin. What hurt most was his detached manner. No anger, no passion. Just a man who had fully processed his grief and made decisions while I was still operating on pure emotion. Did you ever really love me? I asked, tears running down my face. It was manipulative, sure, but also, I needed to know. Yes, he said simply. That's what made this so devastating. As he stood to leave, I played my final card. Lily has your last name. She calls you Daddy. Biology isn't everything. He paused, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I'd gotten through to him. Then he said, "You're right, biology isn't everything, but honesty is. Goodbye, Stella." I watched him walk away, the untouched photo albums and Lily's bunny sitting on the table between us like artifacts from a life that no longer existed. 6 months after the separation, my carefully constructed social life has completely imploded. I used to be the queen of our social circle, hosting dinner parties, organizing the neighborhood book club, planning the annual block party. Now, radio silence. It started subtly. Friends would respond to texts with just, "Sorry, busy," or "Maybe next week." Then the invitations I used to receive stopped coming. Our mutual friends quietly drifted to his side, and my carefully curated social media presence, all those perfect family photos and blessed mama captions, backfired spectacularly when people began dropping passive-aggressive comments like, "Interesting how different reality can be from what we see online." Lily started preschool last month, and I quickly realized several moms there knew our story. I felt their eyes on me during drop-off, the way conversations would pause when I approached. One mom actually had the nerve to ask if Bradley was still in the picture, with this fake sympathetic head tilt that made me want to scream. Even my sister Jen, who initially defended me fiercely, has been pulling away. Last week she finally admitted she was uncomfortable with how I'd handled everything. "I love you, Stella," she said, picking at her salad during our increasingly rare lunch date. "But have you considered therapy? To understand why you made these choices and kept making them for so long?" "You're taking his side now?" I snapped, loud enough that people at nearby tables turned to look. "It's not about sides," she sighed. "I'm worried about you and Lily." Even my mother, my most loyal supporter, asked me last week why I didn't just come clean before Lily was born. "I'm not judging," she insisted, though her tone said otherwise. "I just don't understand your thinking." My career is suffering too. I used to be on track for management at the marketing firm where I work, but I've been passed over for a promotion after my emotional state affected my performance. Meanwhile, Bradley's apparently thriving at his company, at least according to his sister's Instagram, which I still check compulsively, even though it makes me feel worse every time. The gym where it all started became unbearable when I realized some employees knew the full story. Apparently, Ethan returned about a year ago and somehow connected with Bradley. I don't know exactly what was said, but the pitying looks from the front desk staff were enough to make me cancel my membership. I've been forced to move from our beautiful 4-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom apartment that always smells vaguely of the previous tenant's cats. I can't afford the mortgage on my own, and Bradley's lawyer made sure the house was sold quickly, with the proceeds split according to our prenup. He bought a new place in a better school district, while I'm struggling to make rent and keep up with Lily's preschool payments. The most painful part is watching Lily adapt to weekend visits with Bradley. She comes home on Sunday nights talking about Daddy's new house and how they made pancakes and went to the park with his dog, a golden retriever puppy he apparently got after moving out. Sometimes she mentions Miss Olivia, who makes the best chocolate chip cookies and does pretty braids. I didn't need my sister to confirm that Olivia is Bradley's new girlfriend, some kind of pediatric nurse who volunteers at animal shelters in her spare time. Perfect. I'm realizing that I'm not just losing my marriage, but possibly my daughter's admiration too. She's only 3, but kids are perceptive. She's already picked up on the tension when Bradley and I do the handoff for visitations. Soon she'll be old enough to ask questions about why we're not together. What will I tell her then? Last night I found myself alone after Lily went to bed, scrolling through old photos on my phone and sobbing into a glass of wine. There was a time when I thought coming clean would be this courageous act that might hurt temporarily, but would ultimately heal our family. Instead, it's like I set off a bomb that destroyed everything, and I'm the only one who didn't see it coming. It's been a year since everything fell apart, and the universe seems determined to make me face the consequences of my choices. Last weekend, I had to watch Lily be a flower girl in Bradley and Olivia's wedding. Yes, they got married. After knowing each other for barely 8 months. The invitation came addressed just to Lily, with a note explaining that she'd need to be dropped off early for the rehearsal. They didn't actually want me there, just my daughter. But I insisted on staying to help Lily prepare, which no one could really argue with since she's only 4. Watching Olivia with Lily was like swallowing glass. She was so natural with her, doing Lily's hair and helping with her shoes, the two of them giggling together like they'd known each other forever. Lily looks at her with this wide-eyed adoration that used to be reserved for me. And Bradley, he looked happier than I've seen him in years. Maybe ever. Certainly happier than he looked in our wedding photos. When he made his speech at the reception, he actually thanked me, not by name, just Lily's mother, for bringing such an amazing little girl into the world. The guests all smiled and awed, not realizing it was his polite way of acknowledging I'm nothing more than a biological vessel to him now. The worst professional blow came 3 months ago. I was up for a major position at a new company, nearly double my salary, which I desperately needed. The final interview went perfectly until the HR director mentioned she'd need to speak with my references, including my former supervisor. Turns out, my ex-boss is a close friend of Bradley's family. I didn't get the job. The rejection email vaguely mentioned concerns about reliability and transparency. Corporate speak for, "We heard you're a liar." The courts granted Bradley increased custody based on the stability of his household, compared to my transitional situation. I now only have Lily weekdays and every other weekend, which honestly feels like I'm the part-time parent now. Most devastating was discovering that the biological father, Ethan from the gym, didn't actually disappear by choice. I had blocked his number and told him to stay away when he tried to contact me after finding out about the pregnancy. Another lie exposed when he reconnected with Bradley through a mutual gym member. Now they've developed this respectful co-parenting arrangement that completely excludes my input. Lily has bio-dad and dad-dad who take her fishing and to baseball games, while I'm increasingly cast as the unstable mother who can't be trusted. At my family's Christmas gathering last month, my relatives who once comforted me now kept conversations superficial. I overheard my aunt telling my cousin that my poor decisions were finally catching up with me. My own mother has started suggesting therapy every time we talk, insisting I need to take accountability before I can heal. I'm completely alone most evenings now. No friends call. Dating is impossible. Everyone in town knows my story, and men either avoid me entirely or view me as some kind of easy target because I'm desperate. I've started to understand that it wasn't just one lie. It was hundreds of daily choices to continue deceiving everyone around me. I created this elaborate house of cards, and now I have to watch from the outside as my daughter thrives in the honest environment Bradley has created without me. The worst punishment isn't losing Bradley or even the social rejection. It's knowing Lily will eventually learn the full truth about me. Not from my careful explanation when she's old enough to understand, but from the consistent, loving people who now form her primary family. "Mommy, why does Daddy have a different last name than me?" she asked last week. A simple question with an impossible answer. "It's complicated, sweetie," I replied, my standard response these days. "Daddy says it's important to tell the truth," she said, looking at me with those innocent eyes, "even when it's hard." That's when I realized my final punishment. I've been reduced to a cautionary tale in my own daughter's life. The mother who lied and lost everything because of it.